Hi everyone, this is Danny with Why Is This True? And Carl and I are going to warm up the midnight oil. It's a little late back there, not too late where I'm at, and we're going to do a channeling session with Creator about the Northern California fires. And like a lot of you know, I'm very close. The fires got to within about 15 miles of my house. I think where I used to work was burned down. I actually haven't even checked yet, but where I used to work was within walking distance of Coffee Park, which is one of the places that ended up in a lot of photographs in the news and on Facebook and whatever. And this is the residential area where the houses were obliterated down to the ground level, with some very odd features of that fire that did kind of defied logic in many areas. So anyway, Karl has already done a little bit of channeling work on this, and that will be evident in the questions that we're going to ask. But before we get started, I'm going to invite Karl to talk because I do want to have a little short conversation with him about this before we start, because he knows some things, I know some things, and he's had some background with these kinds of questions before. So thanks so much for joining us, Karl. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you and what you're wanting to do with this series, and I am privileged to participate and contribute what I can do. We're all in this together, and that is evident. This is not some isolated issue of interest to crackpots and tinfoil hat people, as often dismissed by the mainstream. Anyone who develops an alternative view of things or is suspicious and raises questions about an event in the news is just assumed to be some sort of nutcase, or maybe a troublemaker, or just someone who's a contrary busybody and all of that sort of thing, or mentally disturbed. So what I learned in the course of my travels is, to my great surprise, is it's usually the people on those fringes who won't shut up who behave that way because they know intuitively there's something really, really wrong. They might not know exactly what it is, but they know that this isn't the way it's supposed to be, and it bothers them, and they want answers, and they really are concerned, and they're sincere. And even people who are mentally ill, I've come to learn, will often tell you very precisely what's going on with them, that they have some kind of an attacker who talks to them and manipulates them, and they come in the night and they do this and they do that, and all these things have happened. And I learned from working on them and clearing out their stuff, they were accurately describing interloping energies, intruders that were coming in, spirit form of people, or extraterrestrials. These things are real, and they affect the environment as well. And there's two big players in this. One is these negative beings, the dark spirits and the extraterrestrials, wanting to mess with us and mess up our world, mess up our lives, slow us down, set us back. And the other aspect is the manipulation of every human being, to whatever extent it takes, to cover up the crime, to keep people complacent. So I think, I'm predicting we're going to hear about those two elements a fair bit here on this topic. This is serious stuff, and you can't just look at the news and see what they say as being the truth from on high. It is not. The media are entirely in the grip of mind control manipulation across the board. I don't care what channel you watch. The powers that be see to this. They see to this. This has been going on forever, for thousands of years now. It's nothing new. It's business as usual. And the people who think they understand things have been manipulated to be complacent, to look the other way, to not see things for what they truly are, accept a mundane, trivial explanation and just go on with their regular routine. So the few people watching this have escaped mind control manipulation. That's why you're out in the audience. So you're open enough still to at least look at something like this and think about it. So good for you. And I'm not expecting everyone's going to jump on board with everything we say, but give it half a chance, because we're getting some high level information coming through via channeling. And it's a little different than what you may hear elsewhere. And the reason is, I believe we're getting true divine connections. Most channelers do not, unfortunately. And that's because of all this mind control overlay. There are psychics out there working for the darkness who jump on everyone who does anything in an intuitive outreach to connect to them, and then start giving them false info as propaganda, or taking over what they do as an imposter, pretending to be a divine being or a benevolent extraterrestrial. So there are a lot of people coming forward with stories about how those guys are here to help, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all not true, unfortunately. So I channel Creator of all that is, as well as other sources of consciousness. And I work really hard to try to keep that work pristine. It's not simple. There are many pitfalls. And there are lots of hazards because the opposition tries diligently to slip in. And if they do, the divine realm has to let them. This is a surprise to people. They think God is all powerful and is going to smack down anybody who is presumptuous enough to get in the way of a divine interest or project. Unfortunately, we're in a project where we've been put in charge, and the divine realm stands back to watch to see what happens. So that puts all the burden on us, unfortunately. We can ask for divine help, but we have to ask. They won't come in unless we do. And the people we're working against, or who are working against us really, have free will also, and they're allowed to do whatever they want to do. So we're in a tug of war here, and God is watching, but God won't get in the middle unless we ask for help. The interlopers will not ask because they're spiritually disconnected. We have that advantage, but we're not using it. Most people have been turning away from the church, formal religion, for some good reasons, because it's been corrupted and subjected to mind control manipulation to make it dark. That turns the real spiritual people away. But what do? They look to their own power to make everything good and to bring about new enlightenment and new paths to ascension. That is Creator's plan for us to do. But with Creator's help, not only us seeing to it. Because unfortunately, right now, we've got some powerful forces standing on our neck with a jackboot. And if you don't believe that's so, look at the news. Look at all the things that are happening. How all the world governments can't even come together and do something useful.
Right.
You know, look at the UN and how effective or ineffective they are.
Yeah,
and how the governments come and go and they never really do anything of value other than create more trouble.
Yeah, and now it's in my backyard.
Yeah, now it's close to home.
Yeah, it's in my backyard. Yeah.
Well,
the boot called Agenda 21 is FEMA is here now, and wherever FEMA goes, things get worse. They don't get better. They get worse, and even that leaks into the mainstream media.
Well, you see, that mind control is behind all the evil that people do. We're not evil inherently. We're an extension of Source Creator. We're literally a part of God. It's not blasphemy. That's the way it is. We're blessed. But we have been turned dark by manipulation from within and without, working on us indirectly with propaganda and manipulation through a lot of means. So you look at all the people you're suspicious of, you know, whether it's Republicans or Antifa, you know,
Yeah.
pick your poison. You know, you don't like the police shooting a lot of people willy nilly in traffic stops and so on, with excuses or without. I'm telling you, all those people are victims. The cops as well. They're manipulated to ramp up their prejudices, to increase their fear that something bad's going to happen, and to misinterpret things. They're told on the spot, he's got a gun, he's got a gun. And it's coming up from their subconscious. I'm telling you, these things happen. We're the victims, all of us. Everyone we hate, they're victims too. They need help as much or more than maybe the rest of us do.
Yeah.
Count yourself lucky if you haven't done harm lately to someone. Feel bad for those who have, because now they have a karmic burden and they were pushed into it. But it's still on their head. That's the way it works. This is a tough school to get through.
Right.
So,
okay. Well, thanks, Karl. So we have 8 questions, and I think the first 3 questions are actually based on work that Karl's already done and shared with me in addressing this question about these fires in Northern California. And it's a big octopus that has tentacles into other areas, and we're probably going to hear about that in some of these answers, but we'll see. The hope is that we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time to allow us a little bit of time for discussion at the end, because we likely will learn some new things here. And with that, I would ask you to go ahead and start, and we'll do the questions.
okay. It'll just take me a moment to make the connection. I use a trance state to get the right level of consciousness, and then I work to set up safety around the work and make the connection. And then Denny's in charge. So I'm just bringing through Creator's voice.
Okay.
This is Source Creator speaking.
Thank you. You have stated in a previous private channeling session that almost all so-called natural disasters are not natural. You also state in the same session that the fires here in Northern California were ignited by extraterrestrial means, and the winds also were orchestrated to maximize the damage. Can you explain the technologies used and what level of human participation was employed?
Indeed, this entire catastrophe was orchestrated by the extraterrestrials. This was not natural, nor are most so-called natural disasters. The hurricanes are entirely created by extraterrestrial technologies. They are not natural phenomena, none of them. 95% of earthquakes are orchestrated by extraterrestrial technology to take advantage of tectonic plate shifts and weaknesses, the underlying tension build up below ground level that would otherwise remain dormant for perhaps many millennia, can be triggered readily by the extraterrestrials to wreak havoc. They create these patterns over and over again, sending tornadoes into many areas where storm centers occur. And this creates a pattern historically that is assumed to be part of natural consequences and ordinary Earth activity. We can tell you that we created the Earth and everything on the Earth and everything in the Earth. And we created it to be a safe and beneficial nest for the divine human, having first filled it with life forms of all kinds that would be complementary and would be a resource as well to support the life of divine human. We did not make an earth to swallow people up, to blow down their houses and flood them into ruin, or to burn them in fires that sweep through and devastate mile after mile of natural growth as well as human dwellings in its path. This was not our plan and is not our doing and is not a consequence of natural forces. This is inflicted on humans by interlopers, extraterrestrial beings present on your planet now who have come to cause harm. They want the planet for themselves, and they have been undermining humanity for many, many years in a sort of tug of war back and forth with the divine realm, helping to stay their hand at times to keep humanity alive. This continues and will continue for some time yet. The outcome is uncertain, and the reason is humans are not doing their full share. It is not entirely the fault of human. They need to participate in greater numbers. But this has been manipulated through mind control to keep many sleeping and unaware of the reality of things. There is much to do. There is much awakening that must happen. We see the interlopers and their handiwork, and they involve humans as surrogate players as well to bring about and worsen the damage from all these events and the aftermath and its consequences.
Okay. Now, you did mention hurricanes. Can you explain the technologies used and what level of human participation was employed in the case of hurricanes?
We do not wish to do a tutorial on weapons of mass destruction, but we can tell you that it is a type of energy implementation that is not within current human technological know-how. It is entirely something they know how to bring about. It is a combination of energy that will change the molecular energy of the matter within the beam as directed from their devices. The increased energy leads to instability, and in impinging on adjacent matter causes extreme production of energy as emitted from the juxtaposition. It is this energy that further causes combustion or an energetic pressure of some kind to create wind movement or to have a weakening of structural integrity. So there may be the collapse of something, the creation of a release of tension in the ground from the plate tectonic shifts and so on. So we cannot describe this in terms of physics, as words do not exist in your language as yet. But we can tell you that there is no natural force that will start a whirlwind going that is greater than 100 miles per hour and will persist for days and days and days and travel thousands of miles. This is quite ridiculous on its face, but you have been led to believe, oh, it's natural. You might consider returning to school with different teachers, but that will not be possible for some time yet. The same is true of the fires, and this has taken place many, many times in many, many settings. It is easy and within your expectations that dry regions will catch on fire. There is lots and lots of history showing this, and indeed it can happen from lightning strikes, for instance, or careless campers, or deliberate arson, all of which do take place. But this simply creates easy prey for the extraterrestrials to come in and start a conflagration, which is assumed to be natural and taken in stride. The damage in its wake is always considerable. It is both loss of life as well as shattered dreams and hopes for many, and a huge financial burden as well. This builds over time from all the many sources of natural disaster. And you are seeing this year turn into quite a gem of disaster-related burden as the storms and catastrophes mount and the insurance claims grow day by day. The consequences are huge and growing, and you have not seen the last of this yet.
So the blue flashes that were witnessed on Sunday night on the West Coast here, those originated from alien craft?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. For those who work in the fire services, such as CAL FIRE, and also among the various law enforcement agencies, who are aware or becoming aware that there are problems with official explanations or with what they are being asked to do in relation to their fellow man, how is that handled in terms of the administrative hierarchy and or the use of mind control upon them or those who are their supervisors? How much misinformation, confusion, or inefficiency is caused by mind control manipulation?
It is always the case that there is heavy manipulation of people at all levels. This is directed primarily towards the leadership, but must be as complete as possible because a disgruntled underling can cause much difficulty for the supervisors because of their knowledge and training. This is how whistleblowers are generated. So the interlopers know they must have containment. And if they bring an entire organization or group of organizations of first responders into line, believing they have done all they could, that they had a plan in advance to follow that would be effective, that they implemented that plan with alacrity and were able to be effective as possible under difficult circumstances, given the uncertainty and unpredictability of an event like a gigantic wildfire, and then orchestrating all of the various elements and dealing with needs of the public to triage for emergency services and on and on. It is easy to see that in the chaos of events, and difficulties in coordinating widespread application of responders. Even with modern communications, there are many opportunities for disconnection, for miscommunication, misinterpretation, and also the making of assumptions when people assume something has been attended to, but in reality, no one is doing it. This is a typical strategy to assume the other guy has it. We can go back to what we were doing, thinking their jurisdiction limits them to a certain area only when they have clearly been requested to assist, as one other example of a common way this is orchestrated. So it is not that the people become zombies. There is the introduction of a number of inner impulsed messages about how to respond, the level of intensity, and then a moment to moment orchestration of things to cause poor decision making and then confusion in the messages of instruction and then the responses to the confused messages of instruction, so that eventually everyone in a chain of events may have some perturbation to make them less than 100% efficient or effective. And in combination, there is a dramatic synergistic effect to make the whole far less useful than it was designed to be. And in retrospect, will not be seen by those participants because each person believes in their heart of hearts they did everything they were trained to do and gave a 100% effort. So the shortcomings might be perceived by outsiders, but will never be accepted by the powers that be, all of whom at all levels have been subjected to this misdirection and the manipulation without realizing it. So these are not evil people. They are simply being manipulated in ways not known to themselves. This makes it a perfect cover up as well as a crime because even the perpetrator does not know their part in what happened to make things worse.
Okay, thank you. Why wasn't this event designed to cause more loss of life?
This is a kind of sport for them. If they wanted to kill masses of people, they could do so readily anytime they choose. This type of mass destruction would upset their plans because they know the human backlash would be considerable. They are already struggling to keep up with managing the very large number of humans currently incarnated. And this is difficult enough for them, even with their advanced techniques for making people complacent and herding them into groups engaged in folly of one sort or another, or simply misguided efforts that have no true useful purpose but keep people preoccupied and out of the way. There are many levels and consequences to the manipulation, but they know if they expose their presence as an evil force, there will be no end of finger pointing and consternation, and this will begin to override the manipulation. It works well for those who see no reason to question things, but it can become undone with enough counter evidence that they are missing something critical. The survival instinct will come to the foreground and will cause them to set aside their presumptions because the need to survive is always paramount. So a heavy hand will backfire in most cases unless it is masked in the form of a natural disaster, for example. So even a massive wildfire of this kind cannot be ramped up to the extent it takes on supernatural dimensions and causes a mass burning of everything so rapidly that humans are killed in place, much as would happen in a nuclear fireball. So there is a natural limit to the extent of injury. Even the hurricanes, with their massive power, have pockets or concentrations of severe damage and leave wide areas relatively untouched. And this is because while the energies are unnatural, the consequences take place in the natural world. And that is always a variable where local conditions intrude on things and make the application of energies uneven through being deflected or having a counterbalancing response in some way through normal laws of physics. There are also always things done by divine realm to work to limit things. This can only be done in response to human requests, but is always an element as well. So, in this way, the consequences not only cannot be fully predicted in advance, but will have variability that limits the damage. So this they figure into things as a natural course from all their experience, even though they do not realize the extent to which divine realm participates to keep things reined in at times. So there are many reasons for what takes place. In some cases, they are simply having fun because conditions happen to be ripe to strike in a certain way. So in hurricane season, there will be many storms. And when there are arid intervals with a history of destruction from wildfires, they will turn to those regions for sport and have fun watching people squirm.
What is FEMA's role in terms of the alien agenda?
Unfortunately, as much as we regret having to say these things, all branches of government are corrupt and are manipulated and orchestrated to be not only ineffective on some level, but may actually work against the populace. And this is, again, because of the inner corruption by mind control, where the officials may turn a blind eye to suffering directly in front of them and busy themselves with a make work exercise when people are crying out for help and in desperate need of rescue. This has happened many, many times. There are many, many stories of survivors reporting the inadequate and cold hearted actions of government agencies on the ground attending to things as first responders to coordinate the cleanup and recovery following these disasters. This, again, is not because they are automatons that are not truly human, but some robotic being in disguise or imposters of some extraterrestrial legions who pretend to be human, or individuals so corrupt they work knowingly to hurt humanity and are in league with the extraterrestrials, perhaps cynically expecting they will survive longer by cooperating and so on. Those scenarios are not real and are not needed because humans can be so readily manipulated. They can be trained and coordinated indirectly through mind control to do almost anything. And this is especially true of anyone with power within government or those agencies charged with having large responsibilities. They are given quite serious manipulation to see they are out of the way or actively contributing to damage produced by the extraterrestrials and their agenda.
Okay, thank you. What is the relationship between this event and what is known as Agenda 21?
The latter is a designation of an arm of manipulation of the population as directed by the extraterrestrial cabal. And keep in mind that you are dealing with a part human and part extraterrestrial threat. The human leadership consists to a significant degree of alien lineage produced through interbreeding that has been in place for thousands of years. These individuals know they are part of this bloodline and are loyal to their extraterrestrial forebears. There are many government programs created within military and intelligence organizations, as well as within the law enforcement at high levels, that are designed to create problems within human population centers. They are brought in to coordinate a further worsening of things in most instances. So, in doing riot control, they contribute to inflaming passions by standing aside or marshaling opposing forces to actually come together rather than keep them apart. And in this way, create further disorder and chaos. So, this is one such operation. There are many, and the code names do represent orchestrated attempts by the extraterrestrials to co-opt human operatives, both military and civilian, to work against human interests and cause harm to people and This is always a part of every large scale disaster at this point. They have refined things to a high art to come in, use their technology to sow devastation, and then use their human minions to limit the speed of the rescue and its effectiveness, to keep people disheartened, to increase the trauma and stress of what took place, and to work to further increase their grip. They have improved greatly over these many centuries in creating groups of humans who will do almost anything when told. This has reached a level when there exists a mercenary force of over 1 million strong who can be sent in to ravage areas to cause complete death or destruction. So it is no problem for them to send a squad of people under any banner in uniform in many cases who will turn a blind eye, march past people bleeding or lying in agony, and tend to some small detail or to further cause damage and not have any concern or feelings of compassion whatsoever because they are totally being controlled within the mind itself. This is a horrible scenario, to be sure, and we take no pleasure in discussing this, let alone bringing it for the first time to those who may be viewing this, who feel maybe there are some problems, but have no idea of the extent of the consequences that can be generated. But now is the time to bring this forward. People need not only to wake up, but to rise up, say no by asking divine realm to come to their assistance and the assistance of all, including the perpetrators themselves. They need to be rescued from this downward spiral of depravity. They may reach so low a point there is no going back. Humans need to learn this message and this lesson as well, so they do not go along for the ride, even unwittingly. It can be a long return journey to repay the karmic debt from death and destruction you participate in. The divine realm can keep this from happening and help you to stay above the fray. But you must ask for this. We will not offer it to you otherwise. That is the test for you. Everyone watching this and hearing our words are under test to see what they will do now. You have been warned. If you were complacent and unaware before, your karmic debt from being here and not noticing will bring a consequence to you. Now that you know, we are putting a further burden on you, because to turn away and do nothing increases the karmic debt accordingly, because now you do know. And if you choose to be complacent and take no action, you are a witting accomplice to all that may unfold here. Your doubts, your skepticism, your disbelief will not save you from that consequence. This is how things work, and this is why humanity suffers so. It is not just they have opponents wanting to cause problems. It is that in addition, all the problems caused in the past often had their unwitting participation, and they have a karmic consequence coming in the form of renewed difficulty and suffering. They both witness and contribute to, if only through further inaction. This cycle needs to change, and you can change it with prayer requests. We are not asking you to go to war against your government. That would be folly. We are only asking that you search your heart for our presence and the possibility of love. That comes from us and is there for you. We give it unreservedly and is all we wish for you, to be in love and in its service to love, and bestow that on all, especially yourself. You can join us in bringing that love forth, but must choose it. That is all you need do.
So this question you may have just answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is the divine realm's viewpoint in terms of mitigating or correcting the spiritual and physical damage given the purpose of these tragic fires?
Everything that takes place happens for a reason, and it also happens for a purpose, even if the purpose has a negative agenda for many. There will be a positive benefit at some level, in some way. Nothing is wasted. There will be many learnings and teachings, both from experiencing firsthand or only as a bystander what has taken place here, and with further understanding and a deeper level of appreciation for all humanity faces to make such things so difficult and so frequent. There are many opportunities for growth and to bring in love in new ways. It is a truism that what does not kill me makes me stronger. And this is true of all adversity. This is the greatest benefit of this long saga of difficulty from outside interference with the divine human project. You will all come away from these times of trial and great suffering with the fullest possible measure of wisdom in knowing how to deal with adversity, with negative influences of all kinds, and with handling the responsibilities of having power without temptation to wield it unjustly and unfairly, but only in service to oneself and others These learnings will be hard won, but they are the truest and fullest and will serve you tremendously in a glorious future that awaits you once you have solved the current problems. This is within your reach. It will not be quick and will not be simple. It will take a concerted effort by many working together through alignment of their thoughts and partnership with the divine realm to bring it about. Once this has happened, the benefits will be obvious immediately, and the glorious future will commence with a cascade of changes that raise everyone up to a glorious new level of experience that is beyond your current imaginings. This is the potential here for you, far beyond a return to what you might think is normal or even an ideal human experience based on your understanding of the world of nature and what can happen for a person to make life enjoyable and free of strife or failure. This goes into realms of possibility far greater than can happen in a human earth level experience. We are talking now of the physical light being with a tremendous reach for creation through mind alone and manipulation of energy to even create worlds of your own. This is the reward waiting, but will not happen without passing this test. That is why it is so hard and so challenging in so many ways and at such a high seeming price, with the pain that may happen again and again through many reincarnations and re-experiencing of struggle, suffering, loss, tragedy, and witnessing the plight of others, experiencing the most heinous circumstances. The size of the challenge exists because of the size of the future potential and its importance. You can know all you are capable of awaits you, and you can start today to bring that closer. It only requires divine partnership, and we will help you bring this about.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good place to close. And with that, I would like to ask Karl to come back.
Okay, well, I imagine that's small comfort for people who've lost their homes and lives of loved ones and so on. It's it's piling a lot more on top to think about, and it's the last thing I think people need when they've gone through a tragedy like this, to get more bad news.
Right.
But this is real. I'm not making this up, and it's not a disinformation campaign to make people unhappy on top of their misery. This is the light talking. And to me, it makes sense because we do have a loving creator, and that's the essence of who we are when we're left to be unmanipulated and untouched by some kind of outside force seeking to cause harm and disrupt things and corrupt us.
There was a good account of what's in store, um, with the passing of the test, so to speak. So that was, he spent a fair amount of time on that subject, which is a little different than maybe what we've been getting in the past, where it was just a kind of a
Yeah.
continuous warning.
Well, yes, and sorely needed. Let's face it.
Yeah,
We need something to feel good about, and I think that is a nice kind of antidote. It doesn't help right now. I understand it. That when you're in the throes of agony, it's not the time to talk about when you're able to take vacations every other month or whatever, because the world will be all wonderful again. We're not there right now, so it's all theoretical to us. But it's nice to hear that, and I believe that is so.
yeah.
And
The
I've been
test,
looking into that for years. The future, the glorious future. It is
right?
real.
The test, yeah. The test doesn't. If you pass a test, it doesn't get you back to some kind of like human sense of normalcy. He's talking about something far different from that.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And it does make sense then that in terms of what we can be striving for is so much more than what we think of as normal life. Our normal life isn't normal, first of all. I
yeah. We have
mean,
no conception of it, really.
we have no, yeah, we've never experienced it. Never. And not through recorded history have we ever experienced it. Sure, there are little pockets of people who are spared for a while and maybe have an idyllic existence because they're way off the grid and the cabal doesn't worry about them. Clumps of indigenous people who don't have much impact in terms of world affairs.
Yeah.
But the
Or
rest
that
of us.
2 week stay at the hippie commune back in the 60s.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That 2 week stay at the hippie commune back in the 60s.
Yeah.
It lasted 2 weeks.
Okay.
It was pretty nice.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to look under your skirt, but that's okay. You can make a confession now if you want.
No, indigenous comes in many forms.
Yeah, yeah. We're all indigenous.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that's not true. Some of us are from other star systems, but that's another story.
yeah,
Yeah, the question I was waiting for that I thought would be the last one was originally about what examples might there be of answered prayers that have happened.
yeah.
You know,
And I left it off because I kind of felt he was kind of answering that in the other
okay.
question, but maybe I missed something there.
Well, there might have been some actual examples of mitigation that constrain things, and at least to allow certain people or certain properties or certain segments of communities to be untouched, for all we know.
Mm,
In other words, it's never the case. My understanding is it's never the case where God does nothing, because there's always some people who are in spiritual alignment with the deity who are under divine watch and for whom creator can be of service and help because they're already connected, they're expecting it, there is an ongoing partnership for them. And so those people will get some assistance. There'll be things that happen.
hmm.
So, for example, well, I can't say it because never mind. I
Okay.
was going to talk about one of my relatives, but I
Oh,
no,
okay.
still living, so
Yeah, yeah.
can't go there. But anyway, I know these things do happen,
Right.
And that's and some examples like that would be of value for people to hear about.
Okay. Well, I'm
Because
sorry I skipped over that one. I
no,
just
no, it's okay because the the object lessons are what gets people's attention. We can talk all we want about God and possibilities, and
hypothetical,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and the spiritual community is steeped in that stuff already, and think that's all ongoing in any case. And there's nothing for them to do because it's already going on. We're ascending. It's clear. It's happening. We have the shift in consciousness, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so we just have to wait a little bit longer, be patient, but it's coming. Keep our thoughts positive, focus on our vision of the future, and we'll manifest it. So meanwhile, people are dropping. They're they're being taken out, and so on. Things happen. Human criminals and criminals that are very directed by government agents and so on. The normal criminals, the usual criminals, are created by spirit meddler attachments, corrupting them from within, making them turn dark and be selfish, turning people into psychopaths and so on. This is a mind manipulation done by dark spirits. It's not a normal kind of thing. It's not simply genetics or environment either. It is a spirit manipulation of the people. It sounds nuts, I grant you. I would have thought this is total craziness 10 years ago. But I've learned a lot since then. And I deal with this every day. And I talk to those spirits, and I talk to the spirits and perpetrators and killers and get their stories.
Yeah.
This is all a manipulation of us.
Well, I'm thinking like with this one the one that we did recently with Jimmy Savile, and how we kind of turned a corner a little bit and really got into this whole healing aspect with dark characters that are well known, and then the response on that was pretty impressive for me to be in receipt of some of the reactions that we got for that channeling that we did. And I'm noticing it hasn't been just super dramatic, but even in this one, whenever we're dealing with creator or some of these subjects who are now in the light, um, there's little uh, pieces that are building. It's building. There's another little piece that creates a better, more complete picture that enables us to understand what's going on and the importance of the healing aspect. And so, if I had the time, I would go back to each one and like, oh, this is the new thing we learned, and then we did the next one, and this one builds upon that, and we see this little creation of information that's coming in and building this picture for us, so that we can really see where we are, which is going to enable us to know what to do to get to where we want to go. And I feel like that this one about the fire is in the same category, very much in the same category, especially the part where he talked about the test, the test for the divine human and what's in store if we're successful with this, and that we can be successful. The encouragement that this isn't a hopeless situation by any means.
It's not hopeless. It's daunting, but it's a test, you see. And it's not that we can't do it. It's all about, are we going to choose the right solution? That's what it is. It's not that it's not possible to do or it's far beyond our ability. It's knowing what tool to use. You've got to have a big tool for a big problem many times.
Yeah.
And we need the big guns. We need the big guy
Right.
to help us directly.
Right.
And we got to do the right things to get that divine assistance. We
Right.
have to believe in it. We have to make it happen by requesting it. And we have to believe we're worthy and deserving so we don't get in the way. Those are the requirements. But so far, most people aren't doing
No,
that, or
no.
they have one of those elements missing.
Right.
If
And
you
they're and
really,
they're still
really
having
look,
difficulty understanding the problem and why that would be even necessary in the first place. And
that's because we've been manipulated.
right. So I mean, that's why I don't feel disturbed or antsy about the dark message, because that's a huge part of the solution. So as much as that needs to be delivered, it will be delivered. And I think once that gets old, then we won't need to do it anymore, and the theme will change. But we're not there yet, so
Yeah.
that's okay.
Well,
It's
people will always be complacent and accept a prosaic solution, especially when they're not there to see it with their own eyes. Something
yeah,
really bizarre. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But I can tell you there'll always be some human explanation with witnesses, because that's part of what they do too. So, something like this. Here's the scenario. They come in with their technologies, they start fires going, they ramp up the winds to make it worse. And meanwhile, the spirit meddlers in 90% of people can persuade enough of those with a criminal bent to take advantage. So they'll come in and not only do looting, but they'll start some fires themselves.
yeah. And just
This,
so the viewers know that I got testimony from people who lived in the area that witnessed that happen, and then
yeah.
they told me about it, and they want me
Okay.
to do interviews with these people and stuff. So I mean, this isn't just some like it is hearsay, but I mean there are boots on the ground here that I'm in direct contact with. These people don't make up. They're not storytellers. They're concerned.
Absolutely. And, and the thing about it is that gives the people who adopt a prosaic view of everything sufficient grounds to say, oh yeah, this is all arson, and then probably a bunch of people all copycatted, and that's what made it so big, and you know, so we've seen that sort of thing before. It's like when the riot breaks out, right? Somebody's got a grudge, they throw a brick through somebody's window. Somebody sees their chance, they go in, start looting. The crowd gets revved up, and they start breaking more windows, more looting, and they think it's all humans, those nasty humans. Woe is us. We're so limited and evil, and that whole thing could be orchestrated by mind control manipulation to tip people into violence. They do this all the time. That's why they create all of these demonstrations. People just turning up, en masse by the thousands to protest something, and sometimes they're not even quite sure what it is, but they're there. Well, they've been herded there like sheep to do it. There was one that was on the news I saw where some people came in. Oh, yeah, it was the Antifa that came in and started attacking these demonstrators. Well, the people were there to demonstrate against something that was completely benign. It had nothing to do with white supremacy, which was the reason for Antifa to be there. And it's just so clear. This is orchestrated. This is a manipulation of these people. They're putty in the hands of the cabal. They think they're doing great things, and they're just falling into into line and being manipulated as an instrument for another purpose. So this is normal. This is it's not normal, but this is
Right,
what happens all the
right,
time.
right.
There's always this element, and then as a viewer of the TV story that comes through, oh, you get bored, you turn the channel. Oh, more of that. I don't need to see that. And any question, any oddity, yep, bing,
Mm-hmm.
bing. Oh, another tinfoil hat story. Oh, bing. It just goes right over everyone's head
Yeah.
because they're programmed to disbelieve anything unconventional.
There's one thing I brought up I do a live stream every Sunday right around noon, and today was kind of weird because I was responding to the fire thing, and so telling some stories and some things that we talked about, and I was talking about the solutions that we keep getting from the light beings, And I remember there was a comment on one of the YouTube channels that say, well, you talk about no beneficial ETs, and then you say go out and get help from the divine realm. Well, what's the difference? If it's beneficial, the divine realm, the beneficial ETs, you're still seeking some solution outside of yourself, thinking that you're, powerless, and that power, you're just navigating based on that conception of yourself being powerless and you needing outside help to solve the problem. And so in the live stream today, I was trying to make a distinction between those two concepts of, the beneficial ETs are, working behind the scenes are going to help us humans. Well, how different is that from us wanting to have a partnership with the divine realm because we can't solve this problem by ourselves? And so I think I did an okay job with it, but I wanted to pass the ball over to you and see what you had to say about the same subject.
Well, I could say a lot about that because this is all wrapped up in the story we're bringing forward here about the manipulation of long-standing and the disinformation campaigns that come in relentlessly. So, so here's what I would say about that. We're all extraterrestrials to every civilization everywhere in the universe, and there are millions of other civilizations. To them, we're ETs. But do we have godlike powers? Not right now, we don't. We can't even go where they are because we have no ability to do that. There is an ultimate creator of everything. That is a higher source of knowledge, wisdom, and power than any extraterrestrial by our definition. That's just the way it is. There is an uber force, a greater force than us or any other ET, whether it's Pleiadians or Syrians or whatever you might want to give as an example. They were made by God, just like we were. Some of them are ahead of us in their development culturally
and
spiritually as well. But we, even compared to them, are unique. And we have powers they don't have. The problem is we're still almost like a newborn. We haven't grown into those powers fully, and that is being constrained right now while we do our learning. We're kind of still in kindergarten. So we don't have the keys to the car yet. We don't have the full toolkit. And there's reasons for that from the divine perspective as well. And then meanwhile, we got these bullies coming in and tormenting us. Well, the problem there is they started out way ahead of us in time, developed tremendous advanced technology and capabilities for DNA manipulation, far beyond anything we can do. But they lost their spiritual connection. So they're examples of advanced, high-level extraterrestrial beings. But they're the last beings we should be interacting with because they have not only disconnected from the divine, they have become manipulated by dark spirit elements, and they're almost as depraved as the demonic spirits. That's why they can come in, have no compassion for us, use us as guinea pigs to manipulate. And I'm talking about not just taking eggs and sperm and tinkering and doing stuff, changing our DNA. They manipulate our DNA all the time, and it downgrades us. It causes huge problems. There's just no end to the things that they do. And it's all because they're heartless. They do not feel love. They don't understand love. They can create loving feelings within us through technology, through mind control manipulation. They know there's a love button they can push and make us love them and make us think they're getting loving feelings from them. And it's all a ruse. It's phony. These are the ETs people want to come in to help us, to save us. The good guys out there right now, the Pleiadians and Syrians, among others, are in a higher dimension. They don't come into the physical. They can send energy into the physical. They communicate with an extremely small number of channelers, extremely small number. Most such messages are imposters from the bad guys, unfortunately. They're not coming into the physical. They don't want to. And in addition, they are under divine constraint to not interfere with the divine human experiment. They're not going to be allowed to come in as a savior. That destroys the whole thing.
Right.
This is a test of us to see if we can solve the problem.
Or even communicate on any really meaningful level, because our tendency to go ahead and go play the worship card, right? I
Yes.
mean, even if they came in a very neutral and very respectful way, not to interfere with the human free will, they still won't do that, because that would just turn buttons on in us. We go, oh God, they're here, and people are bowing and putting their robes on and jewels on their foreheads and everything. It's just, it would go crazy, right? I mean, there would be a huge segment of the population that they'd be beside themselves with worship around beings like that, I would imagine. I mean, there's a kind of a history of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main thing is, we would relax again, once again, and we'd be back in let George do it mode.
Yeah.
We need a Messiah. We need the Pleiadians, the Syrians, the whatever the name is. Most of them are phony. They'll help us. They'll take care of this. Well, what does that do to our experiment?
Right.
We failed then.
Yeah.
The ones a little more advanced than us took care of that pesky problem for us. So we never graduate because someone else came in and rigged the test. It's like having to take a GRE or something to get into graduate school.
Yeah. Right.
Well, you bring in a phony, a ringer, somebody who's got 3 PhDs, and you give them money, and they go in and take the GRE for you, and then you get into grad school. Well, do you deserve that? Did you earn it? Or are you going to even do well if you're not able to be ready on your own? Right. The answer is no.
Right.
So it will not help us to have an ET rescuer. The experiment is to see, can we stay in alignment with the divine realm? Hello? If we can't, if we let someone come in, corrupt our religion to drive us away from the idea of God, change the very meaning and personality and characteristics of God in our minds to make it disgusting and ugly and undesirable and something to be feared. So we get disenchanted and give that all up, thinking we're smart. Because a real God wouldn't be evil, wouldn't be mean, judgmental, condemning us to eternal torment and suffering. God can't be real. We have been duped into turning away from the divine. That is who we are. We're supposed to be in a partnership with the Creator because we're part of Creator. So it's like we're Creator's toenail. But we're deciding, we don't need a foot. We don't need a leg. We don't need a body that's divine. We're a toenail. We can make great things happen. And so to come in and say, you need benevolent ETs. Okay, do you want a toenail that's just been around longer and can fly in a spacecraft to get here? An extraterrestrial toenail? And you're going to put all your faith in that future? I say no.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go back to who we are and get the rest of God to come in and be with us for a while and help us to learn and grow in partnership.
Right.
To continue to inspire us. The divine can inspire us endlessly if we ask and we're open. This is your birthright. But people are closing off to that, closing their mind. When you shut down to the idea of an advanced being, thinking, we got other things. You're throwing away the greatest source of everything you can imagine. It will not come to you. So I can tell you, as a healer who works with Creator every day, I get information from Creator. I did tonight, directly, word of mouth coming through me. That is an unbelievable reality for me to be doing that. But I see things every day that are kind of a miracle: communication, information.
Well, the healing. I just, you have to go back to the healing, right? I mean, that's
When I
we we
when I
can
do,
we can sit here and talk all night, but when the rubber meets the road, it's about the healing, because that's what creates the change. That's where people can come on here and tell you what happened, and I hope people would pay attention, because that's like the first deal right there. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know. I guess I feel so strongly about it because it happened to me. I had like a sea change within like 24 hours through a healing that we did. So I'm kind of like, I guess I'm biased.
you're you're biased, but you're responding to real world data
I know.
that's a direct experience.
Right.
That's an important data point. It might be an N of one. It's just like
Right.
people want to see a controlled clinical trial
Right.
to see
Right.
if something will work.
Right.
So every time you go to the doctor and he gives you a prescription and you think it helps you, that's not good enough,
Right.
to science. That's an N of one. That's anecdotal. It's an
Right.
anecdotal report.
Right.
We have to dismiss all those because
Right.
it's not a controlled study where
Right.
you have all these aggregate
Right.
data points coming in and so on. So, but it's powerful. It's just like me. I'm sitting here telling you these things because I live it. I see it every day. Every day I talk to Creator, and Creator shows me stuff, things I couldn't have known.
Right.
I just had one happen. I had this really nice session with someone doing a technique for the subconscious trauma resolution. And I did a belief replacement with her because her younger selves thought they were worthless and they had no power. And after they got rid of the trauma negativity, they wanted the belief, I can control my life and find love, something like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I witnessed that. I asked Creator to formally replace that belief on multiple levels of being and so on. And I witnessed it. And here's what Creator showed me. She showed me the woman cracking a whip, with a big smile on her face. And she's kind of going around in a circle, just cracking this whip everywhere. Now, I didn't know what that meant, if anything. It wasn't me. This is the way Creator shows its presence, because it's always something I'm not thinking of. I'm just waiting to see what I'm shown, not trying to conjure up anything. And occasionally I see something that makes no sense to me. And this did not look positive to me. A woman with a whip, going around. She's talking about love and, controlling her life. Now what's she going to do? Be a slave master or something? I mean, what is this? Okay. And of course, I had made the mistake. This was their first time to see me. And I told her a story where I'd done a belief replacement, and Creator showed me something wonderful about the client's life. So naturally, she asked, what did you see? When you did that belief replacement? That felt really good. And I feel so much lighter. And so I thought, and I'm sure I had some guidance to sort of go there. And so I told her what I'd seen, and I kind of said, well, I think this means, you're in control better and things like that. And it had a positive feel.
Yeah.
Despite its appearance. And I'm waiting for this reaction. And this big smile breaks out on her face. And she said, just today, I have this business I run. And I've got this one employee who's giving me all these problems. And just today, it was coming to a head, and I didn't know quite how to handle it. I didn't really know what to do. But this fits perfectly because I need to crack the whip with this guy. That's what I need to be able to do, and I wasn't able to do it before. But I'm feeling like now maybe I've got the power within, the confidence
Yeah, the
to
love
do
for
what I
her.
need to do.
Yeah, the love for herself, right? To do that and not feel bad about it, or yeah,
Well, and it's also love for that problem employee
yeah,
because it's not serving him to be that way.
to be, yeah,
He may lose his job. He certainly can't take as much pride in his work if he's being an obstruction in some way and
yeah,
causing
right,
trouble for coworkers and this
right,
sort of thing. There's gonna be blowback, not just from the boss, but probably other people too. They know who the weak link is. You ask anyone in an office, they'll
mhm,
tell you who the weak link is, and they always wonder, why aren't they being cracked down on?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
doesn't that boss come and crack the whip once in a while? You get that knucklehead doing his full share, or whatever it
yeah,
might be.
yeah,
But you see, that's an example of what I'm saying. Now, I could not have looked into her, even as an intuitive, and pulled that today's life experience and worked it into a scenario that encapsulates it metaphorically, on the heels of this little few minutes in
yeah,
her session. That's beyond my pay grade to do that. And I've
yeah,
seen many things like that happen.
yeah,
Some obscure thing from their childhood, which means huge,
right, right. Defining, defining,
implication for
yeah,
the person
right,
that I could not have pulled out,
yeah,
because it's indirect, it's a metaphorical representation or something like that. So,
right. Well,
but that's the God that's out there for everybody.
right,
But you have to want to get the communication. You have to want to have the partnership.
right. Yeah, it's very important. And then, and things are coming to a head in many areas. And now, it's Sonoma County's turn and Napa County's turn. And so we've got lots of company now cordoning off the areas, and they deserve our love and
Yes.
creators' love. And I must admit I'm having a little bit of difficulty feeling that way because I'm kind of like part of my nature is kind of anti-government. Surprise, surprise. Um, but I'll try to take that lesson and work with it. Yeah,
Well,
this morning at coffee, when I saw those FEMA people, I was just like, oh god, I felt like sticking my fingernail in my throat. But and that was a not a helpful reaction to have. But thankfully I didn't say anything. I let them have their coffee in peace, and they left. And but
well, you're not going to be able to change them just
no,
going
I
up,
know,
in a
no,
little conversation or a confrontation.
no, no, no,
It
no. I know
won't,
that. I
it
know
won't
that.
help. But if you ask Creator to help them to do better, to bring love to them and raise them up, you've got a chance of making a difference.
Right,
Why? We're talking Creator who made everything in the universe. This is a Creator level problem. You
right.
see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, I do.
Somebody out in the Pleiades can't fix this right now. They
Right,
can't.
right,
They're not even here to begin with.
right,
Plus, they have divine sanction to not mess with things.
right.
Forget it. It isn't going to happen. It's
Yep.
not Creator's plan. Creator's plan is for us to sink or swim with Creator or without. We'll sink without Creator. We'll
Yeah.
swim with Creator.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yep.
We have to get back to that. And it's not such a bad place to be. It's a happy place to
No,
be. Believe me,
Carl,
it is.
and I gotta tell you, and did say this in the live stream as well. I said, I'm working with this prayer idea as much as I can. Well, not as I'm work. I could do more. I know I could do more, and I will. But I have done some what I would call like some deep level praying, and I have noticed a distinct difference. And it hasn't been like big dramatic things in my life. It's been a lot of little things that really got my attention and were meaningful, but they were little things. but they were meaningful insofar as that, wow, I could connect the dots between the prayer and the event. And I could see that there was a definite connection there. So, so the
Yeah.
encouragement for myself and for others is to work with that, um, because it works. Work with it because it works. So, we're climbing up on some hours here, um, and I want to close this off and get this in the can so we can get it out because I did announce that we're going to do this thing, and I want to have you look at it so I could get it public, which means Monday. So I have an upload evolution that's going to have to start tonight. Editing and upload evolution is going to have to start tonight. So I will be up till midnight, past midnight tonight doing this. But it's important, and I want to thank you again, Karl, and I want to put some love and prayers out to all the people affected by this fire. And the fires are it's getting better. I saw fresh smoke this morning, and I haven't been following it as closely as I should just because I'm busy with so much other stuff. But this tragedy, even though the fire is over in some places, is not over. I have family friends that are standing up there on these police lines, looking at their homes what was their homes, these flattened off, scorched areas with their safe sticking up through the rubble, and they can see they're safe. And they can't go there to get the contents out of their safe. They will not let them back in. And so, there is pain being added to pain. And so, I mean, I just want to, give my regards to the people that are going through this.
Yeah, and me as well. My heart goes out
Yeah,
to all of you, and in this time, this is a terrible thing, and
and especially for the people who had lost loved ones and all their possessions and their pets and the dislocation, and then then the aggravations of having to deal with these people who don't, a lot of them really just are, like you say, programmed not to care about their situation. Just put them through these, whatever, these exercises. But I mean, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we've already discussed what needs to occur for that light to get brighter. And so thank you, Karl. And we'll wrap it up. Karl are we're gonna continue with every Tuesday and Thursdays when we have this schedule. And so what's coming up next year? I'll just look at that real quick before we go off. I know my papers here. So let's see. The next one coming up is going to be viewer questions for Creator on October 17th. So that's the next one. That'll be Tuesday, and then Thursday we have a channeling session with Rochelle, who's the SSP insider from Australia that I just did an interview with. So that's what's coming up. So thank you, Karl.
thank you, Danny. Keep it going.
Okay.
Stay strong.
Okay. Thanks,
Stockpile
everybody.
some water.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.